Alright, good evening. It's Thanksgiving Eve 2018, and I finally had some time to do a video on this Housewarmer 15,000 BTU from Northern Tool. This is an Empire design or manufactured heater under the name of Housewarmer, sold, I think, exclusively by Northern Tool. That's the only folks I could find that sold it. I wanted a heater that could operate with the blower, which it comes with, or because it's going in an off-grid cabin, I could also operate it without the blower in case my battery bank got too low. It still functions with that thermostat off to the right there without any electricity because it uses a millivolt system, which basically it uses the difference between the heat of the pilot light and the cold temperature to generate just a little bit of electricity to be able to sense commands or send a command, whichever direction that goes, from the thermostat. I chose this one because I was kind of torn between a ventless or the direct vent. The direct vent this is literally 2/3 more expensive than a ventless heater. The ventless heaters, that's a whole nother YouTube channel on that debate. It seems like they're very popular. They have really good reviews. They're a third of the price of a direct vent in most cases, at least even this one, and usually the price goes up from here. But the things that just bothered me was if you have the ventless, you need a window open, which isn't too big of a deal, but you're trying to heat a place. If you don't have some sort of fresh air intake, then you're also at the mercy of the low oxygen depletion sensor, which this also has. It's not as critical with this because it is direct vent intake and exhaust. Something I never realized was that the ventless models put a large amount of water vapor into the air. And in the winter that might not be such a bad thing, but if you're constantly running this or running a ventless heater, then that could potentially be an issue, especially out east. I'm in the west, so it's usually pretty dry in the winters. This is a 15,000 BTU. The book has it listed at 525 square feet. I almost went with the 8,000 square feet, or 8,000 BTU. However, it wasn't that much cheaper, and it was right at the upper end of the capacity for the cabin I'm putting it in, which is 270 square feet. So this is roughly twice that size, and which will, I'd rather have overkill and not run it as much than if I had the 8K. I might be running, more propane. I'm not sure side by side, how much the efficiency would be, but I would guess this would use just about twice as much propane if you're running it constantly. But perhaps I won't be running it constantly. I think I mentioned the thermostat. I like the option of the thermostat because that little bracket that hangs off the heater comes with it. The thermostat does not come with it, but it's anywhere from $12 to $20 for these little thermostats. This is an Emerson. I believe my lighting isn't the best, but it's 50 to 90 degrees. And so far the little thermostat down there is pretty accurate. This is a White Rogers. It was advertised as a White Rogers, and I don't know where the Emerson part comes in at, but the one that Empire heating, I believe it would hang on there normal and have the right screws and everything, but I'm planning on mounting it about 10 feet away, so it will function just like a home thermostat basically. Let's see. The blower is a nice option. So far, it seems to be very quiet, and it's well balanced. I would have to say the electrical part of it is probably kind of ancient. There's a hum to it, and it's not vibration. It's just old electronics, I guess, or old technology. But hopefully, that it will be very reliable. As far as power draw, it pulls 24 watts, hooked up to a kilowatt meter. Let's see, I went over direct vent and ventless. The costs again, I bit the bullet and paid for the direct vent units, so that I got 3 little kids, and if we're all crammed in that little cabin, it just makes me feel a little better that I'm bringing fresh air in, and more importantly, getting the bad stuff out. Per the book, the orifice, it's a number 56 burner orifice they have in there from the factory, is good up to 2,000 feet. I'm going to be at about 4,300 feet, and they recommended a number 57. There's some confusion with talking with Northern Tool as to exactly which orifice I needed. I finally just settled on the one listed in the book, and even Empire Heating that manufactures this gave me a different number I should be using, but I'm going to go with the one in the book and see, if I have issues. So far, I'm at 6,200 feet right now, and it seems to have a pretty nice flame on it, so maybe the efficiency isn't that great. I did, when this showed up, down here in this corner, it was jarred towards the right, how we're looking at it, and then the metal was bent there. You might even be able to still see where it's kind of bowed out right there on the corner. Anyway, I was kind of concerned with that, and then I took the whole thing out of the box, or all the other parts, which is the vent kit, which is the intake and exhaust vent, and the vent cap out, and got to looking at it, and the vent cap part where the exhaust hooks onto, the spot welds on it had broke free, so it was just loose, which was kind of unnerving. If it was the same impact that dented the bottom that jarred that loose, I don't know. Anyway, Northern Tool sending me a new one, and that was not an issue at all. Let's see. One concerning thing. My cabin's a kit. It's insulated, but it doesn't have thick walls. This requires a 4.5 inch minimum wall thickness, up to 10 or 12 inches. I don't remember which one, but anyway, I was worried about the minimum, and I couldn't get a direct answer. They just kept repeating, that's what the manufacturer says, this and that. So I went to Empire. Finally, a guy answered my question and said that it has to do with the length of the exhaust vent being too short. Wind could actually blow the pilot light out, which makes perfect sense. So I'm going to, either on the inside or outside, basically just make the wall thicker or jet out the exhaust pipe a little further and the intake pipe. I mean, the heater's not going to know what's on the other side, so that should solve that problem. And let's see, it was it went on sale just for not much, but it went to $518 with a, I believe I got a $50 gift card with it. So that kind of finally, I've been keeping my eye on it for a while, and that triggered me. So I went ahead and bought it. You could buy a vent-free unit, 30,000 BTU, so twice the capacity of this, for $151. So it's really hard not to buy one of those vent-free units, but I guess I'm old-fashioned. I prefer to have a vented. So I got it hooked up on a 20-pound tank. I got my plumbing down here somewhat the way I'll actually have it. It comes straight down from the regulator, and I have a T there going to that 3/8 propane hose, which is smaller than required. It's actually a 1/2 inch, but the heater doesn't mind. And then I put a little tiny, it's not as long as it should be, but a drip tee. That's another thing I found that people aren't really sure about, whether it's really, I know it's required by some codes, but whether it's really necessary nowadays. I put one there anyhow. So I'll open up the cover down there and fire it up. And then once the heat exchanger gets hot enough, then it has a little sensor on there that turns the blower on. Let me pop this off real quick. There's that. Comes off real easy. It's just hung on the bottom by a couple hinges and then magnets at the top. Here's what the guts look like. There's a window or a glass for the pilot light. One's your pilot light, one's your generator. It's got a piezo igniter. There's your little blower down there, and there's those shady, it's like old school motor type deal. I don't even know if you'd call it a motor, but. And then the regulator. And you can't really see in there, but the two wires are at the top for the thermostat. So let me give this thing a quick light. You got to find just the right place to depress that, and it says to wait a minute. I found that 30 seconds works. So that'll work. Keep turning it all the way to the on position. That must have been just fuel that was still in the system, but now it knows it's sensing that there's no demand from the thermostat. So this thing's it's cold out here. It's below 50 or just about. Let's see. Garage temperature says 54, so it's right on it'll pop right on here. Sticky. There it goes. So, when I did that, you heard the click just like you would on a house one. And you can see the burner lit up. And you'll start feeling heat right away at the top through these vents. I got the garage door open because I am exhausting in here, so I don't let it run too long. But I did for two reasons. I want to make sure it works due to the minor damage I found during shipping, and two, I wanted to cook off the manufacturing goop that might have been on the heat exchanger, and it was almost as bad as the new wood stove. I got it hot a couple times and came out here in the garage and it was smoky and smelled nasty, so that didn't take too long. Maybe 2 burns and it was gone, but now I don't have to worry about it. Except for maybe the dusty smell after starting it after a season or something. But and this might take a little bit because it's so cold, but I'll just let it run. You can fast forward to find out when this thing kicks on, and then the same way when there's no demand from the thermostat, it continues to run just like your house furnace would to cool the heat exchanger or take advantage of what latent heat's built up in there. Yeah, I think it takes 1/2-inch propane line. It's been running off that 20-pound bottle fine. You could heat my garage with it just fine. It's got almost 5-star reviews. A few people complained about the typical thermal expansion or whatever noises, creaking and popping and all that, and I don't hear it. It's really, maybe as it gets older, I don't know, I would think as it gets older it would get even better, but it's very, very quiet. You'll hear maybe one couple creaks when it first comes on, and then the fan's quiet, and I don't hear a whole lot of popping or cracking when it shuts down, so yeah, I almost bought the vent free thinking, oh, that's the greatest thing in the world, until I started digging into it more. And I don't think any deaths can be attributed to them, but the amount of people complaining of smells. I guess there's per a gallon of propane, there's a large volume of water vapor that's released into the air. And just the relying on a mechanical system to help save your life if something went wrong. I don't know. Of course, you could broaden that spectrum, and you never know what kind of gas component might leak or blow up or whatever. But anyhow, it just uses a regular plug-in for a socket or an outlet. You don't need to hardwire it. I was just really glad that thermostat controls the flame, or can control just the flame demand only, and the blower works independent based on whether you have it plugged in or not. This is all new stuff to me, so maybe that's the norm. I know your home furnaces won't I don't think they'll run without the blower. Probably shouldn't, but I do get a little bit of orange flame in there, but I don't know if that's... They said dust will cause that. But I'm also not running the right orifice for this elevation. I'm not sure if you could put this in like a mountain cabin. at 9, 10, 11,000 feet. We might have an orifice for it. Your capacity or your heating efficiency is going to go way down, but it's going to work very well for what I'm going to use it for. I have a wood stove, a small wood stove. So when that, burns out for the night, this thing's going to be taken over. That should be coming on here pretty soon. I'm just glad it's quiet, because a fan like that for my wood stove is very obnoxious. And it's old, so it rattles and makes all kinds of crazy noises until I kick it. Well, if I went in the house real quick, it'd sure come on. There it goes. That's all the noise it makes. I'll have to do a follow-up when I get it installed and talk about installation. Installation seems to be pretty darn easy. I'm going to run what black pipe I have there to a flexible propane appliance hose through my cabin floor onto a copper tubing T. And that should be it. And then I'll run I'm still in the process of putting power in the cabin, but I'll run an outlet near it, which I need an outlet over on that side of it anyway, so there you have it. Housewarmer, 15,000 BTU furnace or space heater, however you want to look at it. I'm going to attempt to take this off without making anybody seasick. Maybe. There we go. What I wanted to get a shot of was the exhaust. If my light will cooperate, which it may not. So I'll just take my light with me. Maybe. There's the exhaust is the inner one, intake's the outer. This whole back plate comes off. Part of the internal box protection is the template for it. So you unfold that, one side's the 8,000, the other's the 15,000 BTU. And you just take that out and draw your template and where your hole goes on the wall. And then you take that back plate off after you cut your hole and mount it on the wall. It does mention something about being able to be mounted on sheetrock. It's pretty heavy. I don't know if I'd do that, but I'm putting it on 3/4, like a 3/4 inch shiplap tongue and groove, so it'll be alright. Guess while I have this, and my light, take a closer look here. There's those two thermostat wires. There's your magnets that hold your cover on. Of course, I got it on a cooler, but I'll leave the cover off when I'm running it. Otherwise, it wouldn't move much air. But all right, well, have any questions? Leave them for me, and I'll reply.